9% of countries in the U.S. have been affected by flooding over the past 2 decades. So how do we clean up a flooded basement, and what should we look out for in the process? Becky Worley brings us advice from a pro.
It's a home horror show. Roads awash, sewers overflowing, and basements flooded.
Everything's gone, everything's underwater, everything's destroyed.
Natural disasters, they often strike with such little warning that we get stunned. It takes sometimes weeks, months, or even years to get back to normal.
Matt Reisinger is a contractor in Texas who worked through the Hurricane Harvey flooding disaster and says recovery can happen with some tools you already may have at home, like masks, goggles, gloves, fans, dehumidifiers, and a good old shop vac. His first step, protect yourself. Turn off power and gas in the affected area.
And then you really want to think about your personal protective equipment. That water can have bacteria in it. It can have, sewage basically in that water. So we don't want that to contact our skin if at all possible.
Next, take pictures and videos for insurance purposes. Even if you don't think you have flood coverage, federal disaster assistance may offer some relief.
Documenting is really important, and you're going to want this for your insurance company to establish what the flood line was in the house. Make sure you get every area, floor, ceiling, walls, everything.
Next, throw out what's damaged.
Wherever that flood line was, think about going about a foot above that and pulling everything out from there and below. Carpet and padding, you really just need to trash those. And sheetrock and insulation, they're pretty much trashed. When it comes to non-construction materials, your couch, let's say, I'd be cautious about keeping those.
After all the wet stuff and dirt is cleaned out, that's where the shop vac can come in. We move to step 5.
We want to make sure that any bacteria that are growing are killed. Now, we could use household cleaners, really anything that says kills bacteria. We could also use a bleach solution, but be cautious. This is not something to do with the kids around.
And then it's the dry out phase.
Your best weapon is just a cheap box fan. For a dehumidifier can really come in handy. The dehumidifier will help bring that moisture out of the air. This phase could be as short as a few days, or it literally could take you a couple weeks to totally dry everything out, and definitely go longer than you think is necessary.
That drying is key to prevent mold growth.
Mold can start to grow on surfaces that have been saturated in as little as 48 to 72 hours.
He recommends spraying mold control products to keep the mold at bay and before you rebuild. One final tip, if you are rebuilding, make sure you inspect for mold and moisture before you hammer in even a single nail, Diane. Ugh.
The death toll from Ida is now at 61 people across 8 states, and many of those deaths in the Northeast came from people drowning in their cars. So what can you do if you get trapped inside a car with fast rising waters? Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman has some easy-to-remember tips that could save your life.
With the remnants of Ida triggering historic rainfall across the Northeast, hundreds of vehicles like these submerged, NYPD officers rescuing this trapped driver.
Yeah, just like that.
It's critical to know the best strategies to escape with your life.
You can see those pumps right now in front of us, dumping 200,000 gallons of water a minute into this dry riverbed.
In 2019, I joined safety experts from Rescue 3 International who helped GMA simulate a flash flood in real time.
We have taken major safety precautions here at Adventure Sports Center International. You may be able to tell that we've chained the front of a car to this concrete, and I'm wearing a life preserver as well underneath this shirt. I'm going to get in it right now before it gets too late.
It takes a mere 6 inches of swift-moving water to knock a person off their feet. In cars, that water can be sucked into the tailpipe, causing the engine to stall out. And at just 12 inches, that swift water will carry away most vehicles.
I don't think people realize the power of the water. No vehicle is flood-proof. Once the water gets halfway up the tires of a car, an SUV, or a fire truck, it's prone to float and be swept away.
The key to survival? Getting out of the car ASAP.
One thing you don't want to do not call 911, do not get on your phone. First thing, take your seatbelt off. Next thing, roll down the window. Now, a car battery should live for about, I don't know, a minute or two during that situation. If you do need to break it and your window's not going down, you can even use a headrest, smash it, always hit the corner of your window. Okay, next thing, seatbelt. You want to roll down the window as quickly as you can. Now you want to use anything you can to climb up to get on top of this roof. You can use the steering wheel, the visor, even the seatbelt. I'm going to put my feet on the seat. I'm going to climb out onto this roof. All right. Now you're going to want to ride this roof. If you do still have your phone on you, now is the time to call 911. It's a lot easier for rescuers to see you up top this beat-up blue car than it is to see you in the water.
Experts say you should stay with your vehicle as long as possible before you make that last-ditch effort. And what should you do if you're on top of the vehicle and it starts to get swept away before help comes?
You don't want to be in it or on top of it when it smashes against something. So what we're going to do is what's called defensive swimming. I'm going to jump in the water and try to swim to a calmer-looking part of the water or an eddy, and that's where I'm going to try to get on shore and get out of this water. You're going to keep your feet up in the air, and you're going to use your legs as bumpers, basically fending off any obstacles in your way. And when you do see that shallow spot, that part where you think you want to get out of the water, that's when you swim like hell.
Diane, if folks get anything from this piece, the rescuers with whom we worked want you to remember these pretty easy to remember tips. The first one is turn around, don't drown. If you find yourself approaching floodwaters, you don't know how deep they are, you could get trapped. Just get out of there. If you are trapped and stranded in those floodwaters, first of all, remember the water coming up in the car might be colder than you think. Don't be surprised by that. Second, do not try to get out through the door. Do not try to call for help. You have to get yourself out of there. And the way you do that, as we showed in the piece, is pretty simple. Unbuckle your seatbelt, roll down the window, get out of the car. The new mantra they want you to remember, seatbelt, window out, turn around, don't drown. Diane.